You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Good morning. Welcome to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM, 312-255-8408, 312-255-8408. Also get us on youtube.com/Catholic Chicago, youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. And I'm getting Father Greg Sakowicz, the rector of Holy Name Cathedral. Mark Teresi is unable to join this morning, so I'll be doing solo. We have a great program lined up. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. It's hard to believe last Wednesday and Thursday, around 100 each day, doesn't include temperature humidity index, and the weekend was beautiful. The White Sox have gone from bad to worse, and for those in the Cubs, I'll tell you something, they are a tough team in a huge 3-game series beginning this evening at Wrigley Field. The Brewers winners of 8 in a row versus the Cubs in Chicago. Cubs 4 games out of first. Right now, they're in the wild card. And I'll tell you something. The Cubs are making some noise in baseball. And the Bears, a week from Sunday, open up against the Green Bay Packers here in Chicago. That's your sports report. I think the weather's supposed to be about 85 degrees, so you get it all here on not Relevant Radio. We get it here on WNDZ 750 AM. Tremendous program lined up for this morning. Do Not Discard is a new book by Chicago author Marlene Byrne, based on the true life story of Sam, an orphan who was thrown in the trash as an infant. The book chronicles Sam's story from a garbage dump in El Salvador as he rises above adversity in an orphanage and the streets of El Salvador to arrive in Chicago. Joining us for the first half hour of today's program is Marlene Byrne, a very active parishioner with her husband Brian at St. Mary of the Woods in Chicago's Northwest Side. Marlene, welcome to the program this morning. How are you?
I'm great. You're reminding me that I'm from Wisconsin. My husband's from Chicago. So these next few weeks are going to be a big deal, right?
Now,
Between
wait,
the Packers
Marlene,
and the Brewers.
So you are a Packers fan?
Of course. If you're from Wisconsin, you're a Packers fan.
Clinton and Brian, this program is over.
The interview's over.
This interview is over. I had all these years I've known you.
I'm sorry.
I forgot you're a big Packer fan and a Brewers fan.
Yeah, I know. My mother and my husband will be back and forth all week.
Of course, now Brian is a big Bears fan. Now, what part of Wisconsin are you from originally?
I grew up in a small town south of Green Bay, so it's called Brillion, but it's very small. Yeah.
Were you near Door County?
So it's south of Green Bay, and Door County would be north of Green Bay. So Door County was maybe an hour and 15 away.
Yeah. Well, I hate to say this, for the last 30 years, the Packers have owned the Bears between two quarterbacks, Rodgers and Brett Favre.
I know.
In fact, it's not even a rivalry. Rivalry is where you got kind of go back and forth winning.
Right.
The Packers have owned the Bears, but hopefully a week from Sunday, finally the Bears can win a game. But
two young quarterbacks. We'll see.
Well, first of all, I arrived at St. Mary of the Woods as the associate pastor in July of 1992. Spent 18 marvelous years with a wonderful faith community.
Right.
You and Brian moved in what year?
We moved in 98.
So then at that point, I was already the pastor.
You were.
And
you
Father
were the
Leo
pastor.
Mann was the pastor emeritus.
Right. And the one thing we all talk about you And it's so appropriate that you and I are talking about this book because you're the one that really introduced us to NPH. But you never forget a name. And we first met you at the new parishioners dinner, and the next thing we knew, we'd go to communion, you'd say our name, and we'd walk back to the pew like, how does he do that? So that is truly one of your secret talents, is remembering people. It's
Well,
amazing.
well, thank you very much, Mary. Well, you're Marlene. It- but as you get older, which you're still
Oh,
young, but
it's
as you get older, it
harder.
gets
I
harder.
know.
It does
I
get
know.
harder with
I know.
names.
It does.
It's
It
just
does. It
it's one of
does.
those
Yeah.
things. But now the
Yeah.
thing is, you're gonna have to help me with some dates here now. I
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
then Father Ron Hicks, who is now
Yeah. So,
Bishop Ron Hicks of Joliet. So
right.
we had Father Hicks then called different parishes in Chicago to
Right.
have that group is called NPHs, Nuestros
Pequeños hermanos.
Hermanos. And
Yeah.
was that in about the year early 2000s?
Yeah, I think it was probably somewhere around 2005
Okay.
when we actually had they would come to different parishes, do a kind of a dinner and a dance. They would have their music and dance troupe, and parishioners would host the kids for the 4 or 5 days that they would go to five different parishes,
Mm-hmm.
sort of around Chicago. And St. Mary of the Woods, of course, you offered us to be the hosts, and then the principal at the time asked me to help be involved in, as the moms would do, the mothers club, in the event itself. So I was in charge of placing kids at different homes. So that's how it sort of started. But I didn't know Father Ron or any of NPH before you introduced them to St. Mary of the
So when they
Woods.
came to the parish in about 2005, all these beautiful children, these orphans
Hmm.
from El Salvador, from
Right,
NPH, then I
right.
know you had two children in your home for that
Yes,
1 week. But then it
yes.
is now okay. But now we have to fast forward. The book you wrote titled "Do Not Discard" is about Sam.
Right,
So maybe tell us, how did you meet Sam and what is his story that all connects with NPH and now
right,
Bishop
right.
Ron Hicks, because I know that it was very moving when those children
Yes,
came to the parish and were
right.
part of the Saturday. I think it was a Saturday evening mass, and we had a
Yeah,
banquet afterwards in the gymnasium, and hundreds
yes,
came to the gathering, and the children in
yes,
their garb. And these are children who come from the poorest of the poor in El
yes.
Salvador, who were
Yeah,
literally discarded, and then the whole thing,
right,
Nuestros Pequeños Hermanos,
right.
gives children new life, new hope. But now how does Sam weave into this whole story, Marlene?
So when you talk about moving, I went to that event. I met those children. I didn't meet Juan. Sam was not part of the troop that came to the US at the time. So I just fell in love with the whole organization. So I volunteered in the organization and then was asked to be on the board of directors. I went down to El Salvador for the international board meeting with the family, with the kids. And then when I got back, Juan had been approved for a grant at Shriners. His cleft palate was too bad to fix with Doctors Without Borders or anyone else. He was too old, and it was a very deep cleft palate. So Shriners here in Chicago offered to take him on. They asked if he could stay with some of us. Three families said they would do it. Eventually, they both backed out for very different reasons. And we ended up with Juan. Well, Bishop Ron, now then Father Ron, decided Juan shouldn't come by himself. So he sent Sam along. So instead of getting one kid part time, we got two kids full time. And they came in and out of our house for about 3.5 years.
Oh, so that's how it happens. So which means when back the original gathering in 2005, that
Yes,
Juan was with another family. Sam
yes,
did not come, and then
right,
because of Juan's cleft palate and
right.
it was horribly disfigured, that when
Yes,
Shriners accepted him, when Juan came back to your home to undergo surgeries and testing,
yes,
but Bishop Hicks felt Juan shouldn't come alone, Sam joined. So that's how
yes.
you then met Juan, and of course then
And Sam,
Sam.
yeah.
Okay, now
And
take it from
Juan
there then.
has no legs. So he's on two prosthetic legs. His legs were burned off in a fire as a child. That's really how he ended up at NPH. So I think that contributed to why Bishop Ron wanted someone with him to go through the airports and carry crutches and do all those kinds of things, because he is truly disabled with two prosthetic legs
So
as
when
well.
Juan and
So
Sam came into your home, they were about how old age?
about 17.
Okay. Oh, so they're not like 10 or 11 years old.
No, no,
They're
no,
they're
no. They were
17.
they were 16, 17. Yeah.
And they both come into your home. But now, of course, with you and Brian, but you yourself have, was it two children?
Two children, Matt and Maggie.
And
Yep.
how old were Matt and Maggie at the time?
They were probably about, trying to think, maybe 8 and 6,
So here you then
something like
become,
that.
instead of a family of four, you became a family of six.
Yeah, for at periods of time, right? And they would come in for a month and they'd be gone for 2 months because he would be healing back in El Salvador. So we worked very closely with the team in El Salvador, Brenda and Father Ron, to manage his care back and forth with the doctors.
Well,
So
then
right.
if we now kind of move it in this direction, that is, what is Sam's story?
So, it was interesting as Sam was sitting on our couch watching Spanish soap operas while Juan was in the hospital at Shriners. We decided, and really not even me so much, but another parishioner, Mary Jo Howard, who helped us a lot, decided he should be doing something productive. So she found him an English class at the Romero Center, and he started taking English as a second language. Fast forward to the end of all of this, and the teacher there says he's so smart. He should go to college. He has kept up with all the people who are here full time, but he comes in and out, and he's so smart. So we talked to Bishop Hicks and said, if he wants to go to school, we'll support that and we'll help him go to school here in the US. And he did. And so that's how Sam sort of stayed on as our extended family. He went to school here. Long story, we met the El Salvadorian consulate general because we were having problems with visas and things like that for an orphan. That's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And she fell in love with Sam, and she ended up at the end hiring him in the consulate here in Chicago. So he has sort of had this journey of, coming from being thrown in the trash as an infant, being rescued by a man who then gets killed, going to one orphanage, being one of the first NPH El Salvadorian orphans, meeting Father Ron, becoming his driver, coming here, going to college, and becoming a consulate, becoming a diplomat.
Now, isn't
So
today
it's a crazy story.
is Sam today married and now living
Yes,
in Chicago?
yes,
That is amazing.
he is.
So which means you see Sam and his family often.
Oh yeah, he'll be with us for Labor Day weekend. Yes,
That
he got
is
married in our backyard.
So if you go back to his infancy, Sam
Yes.
was found in a trash bin in El Salvador, literally discarded and found by a
He was
gentleman.
actually found in the dump, which is even worse. So he went in a garbage truck and was dumped into the dump, and a man saw his little hand move in the dump and rescued him. So he was
Wow.
rescued out of a dump
So
in El
because
Salvador.
didn't you say to me that in El Salvador, the garbage is taken by truck to this dump area where many of the
Yes,
poorest of the poor salvage
they
through the
live.
dump area
Yep.
looking for food?
Yes. They've since gotten rid of some of the what they used to call the garbage villages.
Yeah.
And I think El Salvador is in a better place today. But in those days, there was a civil war on when Sam was born in the 80s, and it was the poorest of the poor, poverty, no social programs, government was a mess. So yeah, even when, the story is when Jorge found him and took him to the hospital, they developed a birth certificate for him and prescribed his birth date, but there were no social services. So they basically said to him, you want to take him home? And he was like, okay. So Jorge took him home. I mean, there wasn't this, as we think of it, this social programs and the this was a time of civil war, and it
So
was
Jorge found
survival.
Sam in the garbage dump area,
Yes,
took him
yes.
home, and how many years later was Jorge killed?
It's a little sketchy, quite frankly. Some of, Bishop Ron has the best records he can find of
Mm-hmm.
Sam, probably 6 or 7 years. So he was probably 6 or 7, they figure, when Jorge died. And then he at some point went to his brother. It was not a good situation, and then went to the first orphanage.
Mm-hmm.
And when NPH opened, Father Wasson, who opened those orphanages, would go and say, where are you overcrowded? Where is there need? And he really started most of his orphanages with like 10-year-old boys, and he would start with the boys and he would build up the orphanage over time. Sam was one of those first orphans that went to the NPH home in El Salvador.
On that note, we're going to take a break here, Marlene. So you're listening to
Yeah.
Catholic Chicago on WNDZ, 750 AM, 312-255-8408 with a question or comment for Marlene, our guest. And you can also get us on youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Father Greg Sakowicz, stay with us. And again, do not touch that dial.
Catholic Charities After Supper Visions program offers guests of our Tuesday night supper the opportunity to learn the art of photography. These talented guests, who are often experiencing homelessness, are offered disposable cameras, and they work with volunteer professional photographers to learn the basics of taking photos. Then, the artists go out and capture images on film of anything they find to be beautiful or interesting in the world. Meet the artists and see their extraordinary photos at this year's After Supper Visions photo exhibition on Friday, September 22nd from 5 to 7 p.m. in Vincent Hall at 721 North LaSalle Street. That's Friday, September 22nd from 5 to 7 p.m. Visit After Supper Visions for more information. At After Supper Visions, we are developing film, talent, and hope.
This is year 44 for me teaching. When I started here, there were teachers here that had taught me when I was a student. Now I'm the old person. Right now, I teach junior high math. I love when kids find what I'm teaching to be fun and they get it. I see that light bulb go off and it's a thrill. People are always amazed. What? You're here for 44 years? It's hard for me to believe, frankly. I love what I do. Every summer I think, oh, I miss the classroom. Even on the weekends, I think I can't wait to get back on Monday and teach those quadratic equations.
Shape the next generation of leaders. Teach. Apply today at archchicago.org/schooljobs.
Caring adults make all the difference in the lives of adolescents. Catholic Charities understands this, and our mentorship programs provide a free opportunity for young adults to spend time with volunteers who genuinely care about them. This program is ideal for youth aged 9 through 12 who may need support navigating the challenges of childhood and early adolescence. Our amazing volunteers serve as friends who help youth recognize their strengths and empower them to reach their full potential. Catholic Charities conducts a thorough background check on every volunteer, and our program coordinator closely monitors and supports every relationship. Mentoring is a fun after-school program that can help young adults build confidence and enjoy fun activities with their peers, too. To learn more, visit CatholicCharities.net or call 312-655-7970 in Cook County and 847-782-4224 in Lake County. We're connecting youth with great role models. Join us today.
Welcome back to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ, 750 AM, 312-255-8408. Also get us on YouTube, facebook.com/CatholicChicago. Our guest is Marlene Byrne, the author of Do Not Discard, the inspiring story of a forgotten boy who refused to give up. And let me hold up the book right here, next to my face here, Do Not Discard by Marlene Byrne. And Marlene came out in 2023. How can someone get a copy of your terrific book, Do Not Discard?
So the book is available on Amazon. And so, simple and easy to order. It's best if you're searching to search both the name and the author last name. So Do Not Discard and just put Byrne in there. It'll be very easy to find. There it is up on the
Byrne,
screen.
Marlene Byrne, Do Not Discard. It's an outstanding book. Now, along those lines, Marlene, you've given us some of the background of Sam and also Juan and the whole thing of how it started from St. Mary of the Woods and Bishop Ron Hicks from El Salvador. What inspired you to write the book?
So, I think there's just there are stories out in the universe that just need to be told. And Sam's is one of those very inspirational stories. You can't think about what he has all gone through. And if you meet him again, I'm a little biased, of course, but he's not angry. He's not bitter. He is really caring. What NPH did for him, what all the people who came together, the dominoes that had to fall to make him go from, being thrown in the trash all the way to where he is today. It's an incredible story and testament to the good in people. And I'm a big believer that if you put good out into the universe, good will come back. And I think that is so true in Sam's story. It is about people doing good things. And all we hear about today is negative. Our media is so negative. The stories of the people out there is also negative. But there's a lot of really good in the world. I think those stories need to be told too. And that's a little bit of this story. There are so many people that stepped up to make this journey for Sam happen. Not me. There, again, I think there are people that are out there really searching to do good work, and it's important to see that someone like Sam can be inspirational. Not only that he took this opportunity and made it into something, but the way he did it, the way he carries himself with forgiveness and with dignity and just with humble grace. And I think that is a real testament to sort of the inspirational side of reading Sam's story, where you feel, wow, here's someone, if he can do it, I can do it, kind of thing, because, he really is an inspiration.
What's really find interesting is that here Juan comes to your home for the surgeries at Shriners, and Bishop Hicks didn't want Juan to come alone. Sam comes and changes everything. But now here's an interesting fact. Well, first of all, I've said this before on the air about a month ago. Someone can say, oh, what a coincidence that Juan came to your home and Sam came to your home, and I brought Bishop Hicks in 2005 to come to the parish. And again, a coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. So, we can say this,
there's
we can say that.
There's definitely a journey here.
But somehow,
exactly.
For the non-believer will say, oh, it's a coincidence. The believer defines it as the weaving and threading through of God in and through our lives. So a coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. But now, there's no question that you and Brian, your family, have so touched Sam's life. But let's flip it around. How has Sam touched and impacted your life?
Well, I say this all the time. People will say to us, oh my God, you did such a great thing. I'm like, no, he has changed the way we look at things. I'll tell you a story. We were at one point, Maggie was having her first communion, and Sam and Juan were in town. And of course, she's going through her, piles of baby photos, which, we're all guilty of taking, every 5 seconds, snapping pictures of our kids. And as she's going through it, she's asking Sam, well, why don't you, I'd like to see your baby photos. He's sitting there with her laughing, and he says, I don't have any baby photos. There's nobody that took a picture of me. I didn't have a mother. I didn't have any of that. The first picture that Sam ever had taken of him was the day he came to NPH at 10 years old, and they take mugshots of the kids. That's his first picture. And he taught my kids their privilege in very simple ways. We would be near Christmas, and one of the kids would say, well, I need this. And Sam would just lean over and he would be, need? Do you understand the definition of that word?
Yeah.
again, he taught us all to be a little more humble, to understand how privileged and how lucky we are. And again, I think those are just simple gifts that so many people get when you read these kind of stories, when you're reminded of how lucky and fortunate we all are. Bishop Hicks had a sermon one time, and he talked about really understanding poverty. And he said, well, none of us can ever really understand poverty, because even if we lost everything and had no food and had nothing, we have family, and we would go and live with them. And if our house burned down, someone would step up. We have those crutches that make us never really have to face true poverty. True poverty is when you have no one to turn to
Yeah.
and nothing. And so it's interesting to be reminded of how lucky we are and to understand how fortunate we are.
Yeah,
Make sure that we're happy about that.
Yeah, I think, Marlene hit right on the head, and that is we take for granted, for example, pictures of our childhood, a home, and then also when your children, I say, oh, Mom, for Dad, I want this,
Yes.
I need this. And all of a sudden, Sam, in his own way, the
Right.
first photo of me ever taken, I was 10 years old. And here's a child, did not know who his mother was or his
Right.
father, and literally
Right.
found in a dumping grounds area because his little infant hand is moving, and a gentleman finds him, takes him home, was later killed, and
Right.
he has no roots in terms of a family. And so
Right.
it sometimes frustrates me that when people get so frustrated and angry over things that are so insignificant, and
Yes.
someone like Sam, who wasn't
Yes.
badgering your children or you or Brian,
No.
in a very humble way, saying, in his own words, and so how he has impacted your life. Now,
Right.
in writing this book, was Sam a part of the writing of the book?
Yeah.
How so?
So, I know Sam's story when he got here, but the backstory and all the things he went through, I would interview him. Sam's very much a part of our life. We consider him our child at this point. He's, I said he got married in our backyard. He is part of our family now. But when we wrote this, it was hard because there's even he was a baby and he was young, and there are things he doesn't remember. So I always say this is all based on a true story. We know the facts, but again, you have to weave a story that's interesting to read. So that was a little bit of using Jorge as sort of a guardian angel over Sam while he was in El Salvador, to help tell some of that story and make readers understand what that country was like at the time and things like that. But the main part of my writing, and my goal in writing is to tell positive stories, to write what I call good stories. There's so much good out there, and this was a no-brainer for me, obviously, because I experienced so much of it. But there are so many people and stories out there, and I continue to write. I have been a writer my whole life. It is imperative that we all read and search good, positive things in our life, and reading good stories is one of those things.
And you are a terrific writer, and you're a gifted speaker, but also you are very compassionate. And the word compassionate means, from the Greek, to suffer with. So if someone says of you, you are a compassionate person, they've given you a very high compliment, because the word compassion means to suffer with, and to be able not feel sorry for or pat him on the head, but to walk that journey with him. Now, we're just about out of time here, Marlene. So again, one more time, a hold of the book. Do not discard. And how can people get your beautiful new book?
So the book is on Amazon. If you search your Amazon, you'll be able to get it through the Amazon online.
We'll want to thank in a very special way our guest, Marlene Byrne, the author of Do Not Discard, which is on sale now, can be picked up. And also, Marlene, please give my love to Brian and the family.
Yes.
And all the people from St. Mary of the Woods who are such a part of my life from 1992
we talk
to
about
2010.
you fondly often.
And even to this day here. But Father Richie Kubik is a wonderful pastor, and Father Gudame and the staff at St. Mary of the Woods today. But, you haven't changed. You're young looking today as you were when I first met you in
you're a good liar. Come on.
1998. And so you're listening to Catholic Chicago. We're on WNDZ. So Marlene, love to the family, and thanks for being with us at this first half hour. And 312-255-8408. You also get us on YouTube.com/CatholicChicago, WNDZ 750. Father Greg Sakowicz, stay with us. We'll be back after these messages, and again, do not touch this dial.
Community is core to Catholic Charity's founding mission. For more than 100 years, we have met people and families where they are, serving anyone in need, regardless of their faith, gender, race, or ethnicity. As our world absorbs the economic, political, and social aftershocks of the pandemic, 50% or more of the 6 million people living in Cook and Lake counties have little or no savings. They are a paycheck away from zero. We are deeply grateful to everyone in the Catholic Charities community who partners with us to alleviate the suffering of the people we serve and offer them a better path forward. We are witnessing a message of mercy and hope to a world very much in need. Learn more at CatholicCharities.net.
I am a seminarian.
The Church needs compassionate and well-trained priests to help guide each of us through life.
What inspires me, what draws me always to the priesthood is continue to see priests be a beacon of hope for other people.
You can play a part in the education of these young men as they prepare for a life of service to others.
I want to be that beacon of hope too, and it sets my heart on fire.
To support our seminarians, make your gift at archchicago.org/seminarian fund or call 312-534-7959.
The cemetery ministry is a core ministry of our Catholic faith tied to the corporal works of mercy. It's comforting to know that our Catholic cemeteries are caring for the remains of our loved ones awaiting the resurrection. There are 44 Archdiocese of Chicago Catholic cemeteries willing to help you in your time of loss. Call 708-449-6100 or visit CatholicCemeteryChicago.org. Catholic Cemeteries, serving the Catholic community since 1837.
You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Thanks for letting us be part of your morning. Now again, Catholic Chicago.
Welcome back to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM, 312-255-8408, 312-255-8408. Also get us on youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. It was a great first half hour with Marlene Byrne. And the second half will be just as terrific. A form of sacred art is the icon. An icon is a type of religious artwork, often a two-dimensional painting on wood that is common in religious devotion. While icons are most frequently associated with Eastern Christianity, they are not uncommon in the Latin Church. Joining us for the second half of today's program is iconographer Joseph Malum. Joe, welcome to the program here on WNDZ 750.
Always a pleasure, Father. Thank you so much.
And to think that you were a guest on this program 20 years ago. 20 years ago.
Yes.
And I think, weren't we then in a studio on Milwaukee Avenue?
Yes.
Milwaukee near Devon.
Yes, and at that time I had a huge head of hair, and I couldn't get the headphones on.
I was going to say you had a huge head of hair then. I remember that because I saw you a week ago. Saturday, you gave a wonderful presentation at Holy Name Cathedral.
Yes.
To a good group of people. But then the last time on radio, it's right, you had a bushy head of hair.
Bushy head of hair, yes.
And
yes, you kept saying, I can't see you. Could you comb that back, please? Now look at me.
I was going to say, now you've got wavy hair, it's waving goodbye. Literally.
I'm gonna steal that one from you. Thank
Please
you.
do.
Yes.
Now, Joe, give us your background. Where were you born and raised?
I was actually from Northwest Indiana originally in the Gary Diocese, and moved to Barrington. And from there, I was like an Army brat, but we weren't in the Army. We kept moving around and came back to the Chicago area in about the early 1980s. And I've been in Chicago ever since.
So you went to high school where?
Went to high school in Houston, Texas. And went to seminary. I did 2 years of seminary at St. Meinrad in southern Indiana.
In Indiana.
Which is beautiful, great
Was
institution.
that as a college student?
That was as a college. They still had the seminary college back then, but now it's a very fine institution for theology alone.
The
It's
theologate now.
It's all theologate.
And so you spend the 2 years in college seminary in the first and second year.
Correct. And that's where I learned about iconography for the first time.
I was just going to say, where did you learn? So you learned it. So was there a particular professor, particular class? How did you learn about iconography?
Well, I'm Greek my mother was Greek Orthodox. She converted when she married my father. And that's a Romeo and Juliet, Capulet and Montague story that we don't want to get into now. But she became Catholic when she married my father. And I had been exposed slightly to iconography, but primarily it was the art of the Latin Church. And when I went to St. Meinrad, there was a old Irish monk named Brother Columban, a lovely old Benedictine, and he is the one who taught me all about iconography. And he did icons and made reproductions. He was called the Faker Maker because all he did was go through books on icons and slice them up and reproduce them on wood. So he was the one that gave me the first education on the language of icons, the sacredness of icons. And
now, you actually brought a couple of examples. Hold them up in front of your face there. Perfect. Yeah. Now, what? So that's an icon of Saint Mother Teresa.
Saint Mother Teresa, and a little bit close to home. Although Mother Teresa did have a connection to Chicago with all and my sister was a missionary of charity.
Was she?
Just passed away last year. Yes, and she was.
Your sister was part of that community.
She was. Yes, she was all over North America, and she met Mother Teresa, and that's how she found her vocation.
That is amazing. Now here.
And of course, a little closer to home, we have beloved Father Tolton. And this is actually part of a series that I'm calling the New Icons, which is a new style, but still retains the spirituality of icons. And I'm working on a series of both Catholic heroes of the 20th century, martyrs, people of all traditions, men, women, lay, religious, but also Chicago heroes, which the Mother Church, Holy Name Cathedral, has a suite of.
In our rectory on the second floor, all the way down the hall. Are there about 15 or 18 of them?
Well, they're like rabbits. Every time I go in there, there's like 3 more.
Yeah.
So the suite was actually supposed to be 12, but now there's, I believe there's 13 or 14. We just added Cardinal Bernardine.
Okay, because we have the whole series going down the hallway. So when people come in for meetings,
Yes.
they go from one to another with a bio story below it. And how did you come up with this idea of these icons that grace our hall on the second floor, and of course others can get copies of? How did you come to that?
Well, it's a story that I wish I could take credit and say I had this wonderful Michelangelo moment of inspiration on top of the mountain, but it actually comes out of the COVID experience when there were no materials for the COVID icons that I did. And I couldn't find anything. I couldn't get any materials, couldn't get any art supplies. Wow. So I was like a grave robber going around the streets and alleys and in the basement of St. Gregory the Great, where I was artist in residence at the time, and I found tiles, ceramic tiles. And
so is that literally a ceramic tile?
This is a reproduction of the ceramic tile. And there were boxes and boxes. The basements of churches are graveyards for everything.
Exactly.
And Father Paul Wachtdorf, our wonderful pastor, said that tiles, take them. And I thought, those might make some interesting canvases. So I started painting more realistic images on tiles. But what I like about them is the story that they tell, because instead of the perfect, pristine nature of an icon, they're rough, they're raw, they're unfinished, which is kind of the way we all felt during COVID.
Right.
But I thought that this is the way that they were in life. They were not yet divinized. They were not yet perfected in...
So you actually saw in the basement of St. Gregory's boxes of tiles that were never used for
ceramic
for flooring,
tiles.
And had this idea. And so you actually then take a ceramic tile and to draw on it.
Yes, and the roughness...
I never heard of that.
Neither did I. Till it struck me. But when you're an artist in the middle of a pandemic and you can't get any supplies, you start getting creative.
So which means trying to get a canvas, trying to get this or trying to get that, you just could not locate because in COVID, nothing was being produced and there was a shortage of everything.
Supply chain crisis. Never understood what
Exactly.
that meant until I tried to order art supplies, and they said, not for 8 to 10 weeks, maybe never.
Now, if you back up even further, where did you get your artist background? Because in all honesty, when it comes to the arts, when it comes to music, I took piano lessons for 3 years. Don't even know where middle C is today on the piano. And I flunked art in kindergarten. And it's just not my gift. I'd rather play sports when I was younger. In fact, I did. And so where did you get this tremendous art creativity background? Is that from mother or dad?
No, I was surrounded by a lot of books. Mom and Dad always made sure we had books in the house. So let that be a lesson to any aspiring young artist who's crazy enough to want to become an artist and do it for a living. Books were inspirational. But then I studied in Rome through Loyola University. And there you're in the most magnificent school.
Was that your junior year for the semester in Rome study?
That's when I transferred to Loyola after I left the seminary. I only did 2 years at the
Okay.
seminary.
At Mine Res.
College, correct. And then I went to Loyola Rome Center, and that's where you wake up, you roll out of bed, and in 10 minutes you're in the Forum, you're in the Piazza Barberini, you're in the Vatican Museum, and I got a lot of inspiration there, but I also trained under some local artists where I started learning the language of iconography. And then I branched off on my own, and that's when I was invited to be the artist in residence at St. Gregory the Great.
In what year?
2001.
And that lasted until what year?
And then I left. I said I was going to do 20 years, but that was during COVID, so everything was stretched out a little bit, and so I left in almost 2022.
And today you are living and doing what where?
I'm working out of I have a large apartment, and I'm like a bohemian 19th century French impressionist. I'm living and painting in my studio, and the only drawback was that at Gregory's we were able to give icon painting lessons, workshops and classes and retreats. But I've moved on, and I'm focusing on my writing projects and other icon commissions.
Now, who was the pastor in 2001 at St. Gregory's?
It was Bart Winters.
Then followed by Paul Wachtdorf?
Followed by Paul Wachtdorf. Tom Healy was there for
Sure.
an interim year, who was just wonderful, wonderful, lovely guy, very
All
supportive.
Tremendous priests, Bart and Paul and Tom.
Paul Wachtdorf, we were very blessed to have Paul Wachtdorf. And he said when he first showed up after the seminary, he said, I don't know what you do with this art stuff, but it's a very valuable part of the mission of the parish, and I want you to continue. So we were doing the outreach of the evangelization through the arts, the artist in residency program, and now it's continued. So they have after I left, everything's continued at St.
Ironically, with Father Tom Healy, when I entered the college seminary, coming from Notre Dame High School in '71, Father Tom Healy taught me. He was a professor in the college seminary and taught me Psychology 1, Psychology 2, my freshman year in the college seminary. Wonderful professor. The seminarians loved him, and a great, great priest. So you were at St. Meinrad your first 2 years. I was at Niles College Seminary of Loyola for 4 years and on to Mundelein. But I always remember Father Healy taught me Psychology 1 and 2. We're going to take a break here, Joe, on Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM. 312-255-8408, a question you may have for Joe. Also get us on youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Father Greg Sakowicz, Joe Malum. We'll be back after these messages. And again, do not touch that dial.
We are hiring. Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of Chicago is looking for mission-driven individuals who want to help make a positive difference in the lives of people in need throughout Cook and Lake counties. Be part of a diverse, talented team of professionals in the largest human services organization in the Midwest. We are dedicated to helping people chart a more stable, happier future for themselves, and we accompany anyone in need, regardless of faith, gender, race, or ethnicity. Competitive salaries and generous benefits add to the satisfaction you'll have every day knowing that you're helping us amplify our impact in Chicago. To see our list of employment opportunities, visit CatholicCharities.net.
I feel special. I feel great. I got good grades.
We've seen a huge surge in our kids now meeting or exceeding grade level. Come check us out. You may have never thought we were an option before.
Our school communities provide students with academic excellence and character education in a supportive and stable learning environment. Come see for yourself. Visit archchicago.org/findaschool.
And welcome back to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM 312-255-8408. Also get us on youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Our guest this last half hour is Joe Malum, who is a not resident, but a tremendous iconographer for many, many years. And it's interesting, Joe, that in all the work that you do, what is the most commonly, how should I put it, myth that you have to sometimes correct with the work that you do? Like when people say, maybe they'll ask you, like, what is iconography? What do you do? Is there like a certain myth that you're always trying to correct and say, this is not what I am, this is not what I do, this is not what iconography is all about? Is there a certain something that is always like misunderstood?
Great observation. Yes. Well, my parents asked for years, what do you do? Why don't you get a job?
Get a job.
Settle down, get a job with a good 401k. That's a great. And if I ever get the time, I'm going to sit down and write a book about the myths and misconceptions about iconography.
For me, example, I always think of iconography as Eastern Church. I automatically think in terms of the Eastern Church. I don't associate it with the Western Church or the Latin Rite. And yet you're saying that's part of it, but I always think of iconography, Greek Orthodox, which, again, that is a myth that would be totally not true.
Correct. And remember, it's good to remember, and I'm sure you've been to Italy several times.
Twice.
There's all throughout southern, in the Mediterranean basin, there's churches in Italy that have iconography. They have mosaic, because until maybe the time of Cimabue and Duccio in the 12th and 13th century in Giotto, iconography was the lingua franca of the Christian world throughohout the Mediterranean basin.
Okay, now let me ask you this question then. When you look at the religious art of someone like Rembrandt, all those famous painters of centuries past, they're not iconographers. They were just painting, the Passion, the Blessed Mother, Jesus, the crucifixion. It's a rendition or a painting. In the world of iconography, what are you doing that separates you from a painting, but now it's an icon? Is my question making sense?
Yes, and that's how when I would give icon workshops, we would have to contextualize it and frame it in some kind of intellectual and spiritual understanding. And when I talk about that, it's almost like the two ways in the scholastic period of knowing God, the via negativa, the via positiva, the way of light and knowledge, which would be more like Western art, which is where you see reality, you see mass and muscle and density and people in realistic looking spaces, and that's a way of knowing the world. And then there's the via negativa of unknowing, the way of darkness, where you don't understand, you go by what you do not understand. And I think iconography grows out of the via negativa. I'm sure there's a lot of scriptural scholars and theologians out there who are going to correct me on that. But it's the way of light and it's the way of darkness, because remember, like Giotto and beginning the early Renaissance up to the high Renaissance and beyond, that was informed by a lot of scholasticism, of knowledge of the known world and intellectual ways of knowing God. And St. Francis of Assisi had a great responsibility for that because of the sacred humanity of Christ and realistic things associated with Christ. Iconography always remained in the realm of the mystical, of coming to God through the ways that are unknown. Like when people come and say, what does this icon mean? And I'm like, what, in 10 seconds? So iconography more is the theology of the encounter, where it's kind of like Martin Buber's theology of the I and thou. The I and thou. It's the gazer and the gaze, the seer and the seen.
So for example, then, Joe, is you hold up that icon, hold it up again. So if someone were to say to you, look at that beautiful painting, you say, no, that's not a painting, that's an icon. So then what's the difference?
There's a sort of a prima facie, I don't know, I'm using legal terms, but there's a primary experience of Western art where you could see what's going on, and it's more pedagogic, and it's telling stories from Scripture. But with iconography, the mystical element is for you to become absorbed into. That's why icons always have frames around them on the wood panels, because it's like a doorway. It's a great way to explain it. Sacred doorways.
Sacred doorways.
It's a sacred portal through which we enter in to encounter the mystery of Christ and encounter the mystery of those saints and men and women and holy people. Whereas Western art is always very understandable. There's always the story being told. But with iconography, you really have to enter into a mystery and pray with the image.
I like that image of the door. As you enter into the doorway, there's an encounter entering in. That's why icons are always framed, is because it's a way of entering in. Then as this question, all the work you've done for all these years in iconography, how has iconography touched and changed your life?
How long is this program? 90 minutes?
Another 7 minutes.
I think that it's almost like any relationship. It makes me realize that it is a relationship. And if I would, like my parents, their relationship to each other, what they learned from each other, I realized that this was helped by the artist in residency experience, because as I was told, you're not here just to crawl up to your studio and paint. You're here to serve the community. And I think that if I had remained outside of the community without the artist in residency, and a community to be responsible to and answerable to and serving, I think I would have become a better but a more shallow person. I think it would have been a better artist but a more shallow Catholic and a more shallow person of faith.
Now, maybe along those exact lines, you said something very interesting. That is, I've been blessed with the gift of priesthood now for 44 years, have done many, many, many weddings. And many couples have said to me, the reasons they married this particular person are not the same reasons they have remained married 20, 30, 40 years later.
Beautiful.
And the same thing can be said of priesthood, the gift of priesthood.
Yes.
The reasons I wanted to become a priest back in the 70s, ordained in 79, are not the same reasons that have kept me a priest 44 years later, because I'm not the same person. And you grow in the gift of falling in love with the people, that when you're in the seminary, you don't know this, but also I love that great line from John Lennon, life is what happened while I was making other plans. We have this vision of what our life is going to be. So even as an iconographer, I'm sure that life has taken you down roads you never dreamed or imagined, but through your iconography, it has helped shape you are. And the reasons you have remained an iconographer today are maybe not the same reasons why you got into it 20, 30, 35 years ago. So a very parallel line, because we are always changing. What's that great line? The greatest constant in life is change.
Amen.
It's so true.
Amen, Father. And beautiful description of your own priesthood. And congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Many more years. A multo años.
A multo años. And same thing with you. And so as you move forward, what are some of the hopes and dreams as you now move forward, Joe?
What I would like to do is continue. I've been blessed to continue as an artist, detached from the mothership of the parish and the support system and the structure. But it's given me a certain amount of mobility. So what I would like to do, now that we weathered the COVID storm, I'm still getting requests for icon workshops, speaking engagements. I was just out in Pennsylvania, a community that I did a processional cross for, now wanted me to come back and talk about the Catholic heroes, and they had like 20 of their religious ed students
Really?
about to receive a confirmation, taking notes, because they wanted to integrate the lives of these men and women, warts and all, from all walks of life and all colors, and how they lived their life, their heroic witness to Christ. And so I'd like to keep on this path of telling the story of the heroes of the 20th
now,
century.
Your Catholic Heroes series, which was the first one you did?
Father Tolton.
And going back, what, about 3-4 years ago?
It was during COVID.
So
yes.
it was during COVID that sparked this idea.
Yes.
Well, which one was the last one you did, most recently?
The Catholic heroes. I think it was Cardinal Bernardine.
Oh.
So I started with Chicago and I ended with Chicago.
Yeah, and so, okay, it's very fascinating, and so then you get requests from all over the country to be a lecturer, to be a speaker. You were just at Holy Name Cathedral a week ago Saturday.
Yes.
And to present about 25, 30, 35 people, and it was very, very, very well received. And so the thing is, are you in the process of writing any books right now, or any articles?
Yes, I have. There's an article coming out in U.S. Catholic in September on the COVID icons, the icons that I did during the lockdown.
Oh, wow.
Where I had to find tabletops and our old friends, the
tile
ceramic
ceramics.
Tiles, and anything that I could find. It's amazing how many old canvases, old paintings are thrown out in alleys around Andersonville. And I would just go and put coats of gesso on them, repurpose them, paint them again, turn them into icons.
That's amazing.
So, and then, several book projects, including a proposal for a book on the Catholic heroes of the 20th century.
That is tremendous. Now, if you go back in your life, what was the very first icon you ever drew?
I believe it was, I remember the one that I did as an iconographer under tutelage, using the real skills and language and materials, was a Christ Pantocrator with Christ's blessing, holding the book.
And this would be about what year?
1995, 96.
So really, you've been doing this work for going on between 25 and 30 years.
Yes.
And it's interesting, as
Yes.
I've met you in the past, including today, you have an incredible energy and passion for it. I mean, this is truly your life's work. I mean, there's a passion about you when you talk. You get fired up about it. You get enthused about it. And I'm sure you would have been a tremendous teacher in the classroom with your residency program at St. Gregory's because of the passion you have for this area. I mean, you literally, Joe, you live and breathe iconography. You just do.
Sort of strange when you think of it. I mean, it should
never,
be the Cubs or
I won't say the Bears, but I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think so. But again, give us one more time. Hold up the both of them.
There's
We've got a few
Father
seconds
Tolton.
left.
Want to make sure.
And now, if people want to get a copy of these, how can they do this?
They can go to my website, which is www.trinityicons.com.
One more time.
www, and this is one word, trinityicons.com.
Now, if somebody wanted to give you a phone call, do you have a number?
312-388-4566.
One more time.
388-4566.
Want to thank in a very special way iconographer Joseph Mallon for being our guest today. Great job, Joe. Great work of our producers and engineers, Clint Cottrell and Brian Hockey Hitman Brock. Thank you very much, gentlemen. To our listeners, God bless all of you. Have a wonderful week, and may the Cubs beat the Brewers the next 3.
Amen.
Join us every Monday through Friday at this time for Catholic Chicago. You can stream our programs live or listen to past programs by visiting our website, archchicago.org, and clicking on Radio TV. And please connect with Catholic Chicago on social media.